Huh? Okay. Namaste. There are some moments in your life which become defining moments. Key events, if you like, which are etched into your memory. Quite often when you recall those events, you'll be speaking to your friends, and the key words that come out, I remember as if it was yesterday. Imagine, if you will, a 5-year-old boy. He's in a public place. He's got both of his hands out. One hand is towards his front, holding a parent's hand, and one hand is towards the back, clasping another hand. The hand held at the front is being held firmly and tenderly, trying to reassure that everything's going to be okay. And the hand behind is also being held tenderly, in a loving way. This was the scene in Mumbai Airport, or Bombay Sahar Airport, as it was known in the summer of 1983. The hand being held in front was my mum. She was holding my hand. The boy was me, and the hand that I was holding behind me was my nanima. Her name was Kasturben Nemchand Savla. While this was going on, I was very distressed. I was scared, hysterical, and tears were flowing down my cheeks. And the reason why this was happening was because my dad had just got transferred to a role in London, to a new life. And I really didn't want to go, which is why I was holding on to my nanny's hand. This moment kept coming back to me as I was growing up. And as I grew up, I often wondered, why was this moment so important? As we grew up in London, my brother and I learned more and more about the challenges that my parents faced when they were younger. And one of the challenges was that actually when my mum and dad knew that they were having twins, one of the things they did was actually they didn't tell anyone. They kept it quiet. The only other person in the family that knew that twins were on the way was my nanima. And the reason behind this was because at the same time, I had a younger sister, an older sister as well. She was 6 months old at the time, and unfortunately she was unwell, so she was going to hospital in and out on a regular basis. At this time, my nanima was a pillar of strength for my mum and dad. While my mum was obviously pregnant and had to have someone look after her, my dad would go to the hospital and do the hospital runs. And so at the same time, my nanima was there, just being that strength for our family as we went through that process. Unfortunately, my sister didn't recover, and roughly about 9 months after we were born, she passed away. And again, at this time of distress and tragedy in our family, my nanima was there again, providing the strength, helping us to cope. It was a very difficult time for my mum and dad. They just lost a young daughter. It's getting a bit emotional. And then at the same time, they had two boys to look after as well. So having my nanima there really helped. So nanima was there. She helped us go through that terrible time. My mum and dad had to kind of get on with life. So they worked out a system. My dad used to work in Churchgate in central Bombay at the time. And my nannima's home was halfway between our home and work. So what my dad used to do was he would take me, and remember I'm 9 months old, so he'd carry me on the train all the way in to my nannima's place. I would then stay with my nannima for the day. Later on, my mum would come along with my brother, and then we would be there for the rest of the day. And then once that was over, my dad would come back at the end of the day and pick us up, and we'd all go home. So really, those first few years was when my nanima really brought me up. And I think that's why we had such a special bond. I think what I've learned through this experience in this story, obviously I was too young to really know, but as I grew up I found out about this story, was the commitment that my nanima had for her family, the time that she spent with us. When we used to go back to India to see family and relatives, we would see my cousins quite often. And all of us would be at my nanima's place, and we'd get together in the evenings and we'd be saying to Ba, we would say, Ba, varta karo, which is, tell us a story, tell us a story. And she would regale us with these lovely stories. You know, there's often those stories that you have of sanskar and etc. that are given. So we would listen to those stories. As we got older, like we're 17, 18, we would go back and we would be, again, all of us cousins together. And this time, half teasingly, we would say the same thing. We'd be like, Ba, varta karo, tell us a story. And she would say to us, Na, tame mota thaiga, you're all older now. Hu tamara chokra ne kais, I will tell your children. Unfortunately, I didn't get that opportunity with my Ba. She passed away just a few months before my youngest son was born. But we will always remember those stories with us going forward. Namaste.